Alright, so Dead or Alive is getting a reboot. Let's talk more about it. If you guys haven't already, please check out my previous video where I talked about the Dead or Alive reboot that is coming. But yeah, if you guys have already seen that, then you know there is one very important thing that I forgot to mention. And to be honest, I think it's actually best that I didn't mention it in that video because I get to make a separate video where I talk all about that. And that is the Dead or Alive sex appeal dilemma. So, my Dead or Alive boys, I need y'all on this one. With the Dead or Alive franchise getting a new game that is seemingly going to be a reboot, this begs the question, will they take away the sex appeal? I already got a few comments on the other video where they talked about rumors here and there about them wanting to reboot the series for the sake of toning down certain elements in the franchise. And so I kind of wanted to take the opportunity to make this video and talk about that. Now let's be real, I think a lot of us DOA fans love the sex appeal and, you know, the fact that we can have these really intense, dramatic, epic fights with these girls that also are, you know, wearing skimpy clothing, look really sexy, and they're just waifu material, right? Like, I think that is definitely one thing that makes Dead or Alive stand out from all the other fighting games out there, right? Like, Dead or Alive is definitely known for having that and stands out for having that for sure. Like, it definitely plays a big role in making Dead or Alive unique in that way. And me personally, you know, obviously I love anime, I love my waifus, you know, and I do love the fact that Dead or Alive has that element there, you know, has that sexiness factor to it where, you know, you've got these really hot anime girls on the screen, but at the same time, you know, they're throwing hands for real. Like, oh my god, you just see Mila duff Honoka to the face. Meanwhile, Kasumi is walking down the stairs as she's stomping on your face as you get pummeled to the ground. Like, it's dope. Like, I love that, you know? At the same time, you know, we see those magical physics on the screen. But all jokes aside, I mean, I think it's really cool, and I've never had an issue with it. I would consider myself to have a pretty open mind about those kind of things, and just in general about a lot of things. So it's never really bothered me. I've always seen it as like a, oh hey, that's pretty cool, like fan service and stuff. But I've also at the same time always seen Dead or Alive for what it really is, which is a highly skillful fighter that is easy to pick up but can get super deep once you learn the mechanics and everything like that. So after playing a lot of Dead or Alive, especially on ranked, I've realized that this is a game where you need your brain to be awake if you want to even think about winning. I talked a little bit about this in the previous video, but yeah, Dead or Alive is a franchise where once you get the hang of it and once you learn all the mechanics, it can get really deep. But we're not here to talk about that in this video. For this video, I wanted to talk about, you know, just the sexiness and the sexualization and all that stuff, right? So this video is kind of meant to act as like a place for all you guys to place your comments in the comment section below and sort of discuss, you know, how you guys feel about this. And I'll just give a little bit about my thoughts. But personally, I kind of want to hear your guys' thoughts. So that's why I'm making this video. But yeah, obviously, in my opinion, I think the best way to go about this is just to give the players the option, right? Like, give the players the option to have the sex appeal if they want it, or just if they want to turn it off. Like, you know, I think the best way any developer can make a game is to give the player as many options as possible. Going into that more would be a different video, but the best thing a game developer can do is give the player as many options as possible. So obviously, if they give us the option of like, hey, there's some people that want the sex appeal there, you know, probably longtime DOA fans, and maybe there's people that don't really care for that stuff and don't want to see that, and they can turn it off, you know, like give us that option to have it on off. I think if they give us the option, no one can complain because you have the option there to turn it on or off. Easy, right? Easy, simple solution, right? If I'm not mistaken, I remember in DOA 6, when DOA 6 was coming out, I remember hearing rumors about, oh, they want to tone down the series, they want to tone down the jiggle physics and all that stuff, right? Tone down the sex appeal and all that stuff. And then I remember when the game came out, seemingly they didn't tone down that stuff, which I thought was pretty good. Like, I thought that that was cool that they did decide to like keep that there or stick to it. I feel like in 6 though, they definitely did tone it down a little bit from 5s, because in 5s they had like an OMG setting for like the breast physics, and like those went crazy bonkers bananas with the jiggle physics. Like honestly, in 5s, if you set it to like the OMG, like it was maybe a little bit too much with how much they were just like going all over the place. But hey, I mean, like, I think that was part of the beauty and like the kind of funny aspect of it, you know? And like, again, it was an option to have. Like, you could have it set all the way to max jiggle, or you could have it toned down a little bit, right? And I think, and in 6, if I'm not mistaken, there's not like that max setting, or if there is, it's not like as much as it was in 5s. You can still just like change the setting on it a little bit, and that should be the end of it, right? Developers just give us the option to have it on or off, right? However, if we try to think about it from the developer's standpoint, I can understand why they actually might not add it into the game. Here's why, right? So let's face it, Dead or Alive, as much as I think this franchise is amazing, I love the characters, I love how they have that sexiness factor to it, and I love how deep the game can get. And I also think the games so far have been pretty well balanced and have all looked really amazing. Like, I think I'm gonna make another video where I just talk about how Dead or Alive is probably one of the most underrated fighting game franchises out there. But I digress. As great as I think the games in this franchise are, we can't deny the Dead or Alive franchise and the Dead or Alive community is very small, is very, very niche, right? I think a big part of that is the fact that, you know, a lot of people just see the waifus, the big booba, and then they're like, oh yeah, this game is only for degenerates, right? They don't see the high level competitive aspect there. And let's face it, for a video game franchise to succeed, you know, to hold its own, it's gonna need a big community, right? And I think that the developers are probably thinking, in order for our game to succeed, we need the game to be displayed at, you know, big tournaments like EVO, the recent European tournament that just happened, UFA, right? Like all these huge tournaments, they want DOA to be there, right? And I think that one thing that might detract from these bigger tournaments wanting to display DOA is that sex appeal. And again, it shouldn't be that much of an issue if they have the option to turn it on or off, but I think that it'll probably be an unnecessary big deal, or like some kind of drama to where if they're showing a tournament without the sex appeal, people in chat might be like begging for it or something like that. I don't know. Like, if the option is there, that might make the developers think that, okay, this might happen or that might happen. So they might just want to say either don't do it at all, or, you know, do it in a different type of way. At least that's what I'm thinking that they might be thinking. Whereas if they didn't do it at all, if they didn't even have the option there, that would definitely allow a lot of new fans to come in. And I think that would be the point of them making a reboot for Dead or Alive in the first place, right? Is for them to get new fans, because the Dead or Alive community is so small and so niche, and we need a lot of new people to help support this gaming franchise and keep it going and sustain it, right? Like, the only other reason I can even think of them to make a reboot is, again, for the story. And I've already talked mostly about the story and how they should do that in the other video. So again, if you guys haven't seen that already, please feel free to check that out. But yeah, aside from story, the only real reason they would have to do a reboot is to cater to a brand new audience. And I think all of that would make sense, right? I think they would want to get new people in that see DOA for not just the waifu, big booba, and see it for everything else that it has to offer. And then that way they can start having more tournaments and people can take it more seriously and stuff like that. That would make sense if the developers want to shoot for that direction, and would make sense for them to take out the sex appeal if they were going for that, right? I could totally see that. I don't agree with that necessarily, but I could totally see that. However, I think the downside of them completely taking out the sex appeal is that even if they're trying to, you know, build this whole new audience for the franchise and get all these new people in, that's all fine and dandy. And, you know, maybe they can be on the big screen and on these big tournaments now that, you know, the sex appeal is gone. But at the same time, there's always a chance that the game could fail, right? Like, look at DNF Duel. The game came out fresh, new, looks great, feels great. Everyone was having a great time with it. But then EVO pulled up and, you know, the game kind of just fell off after that. The developers of the game let it die with no new content. It wasn't even a main game at EVO, even though that was the first year it was at, and it probably should have been a main game, but I don't know. EVO was a little bit confusing this year, so it is what it is. Partly because a lot of people were playing their main game to practice for Evo, that may have also had a hand in helping with the downfall of DNF. These are all things that could very well happen to Dead or Alive, right? Like, this new Dead or Alive could easily fail and fall under the same path that DNF Duel did. And if that happens, then the game can really only rely on its fans at that point, the Dead or Alive fan base, right, to support the game, sustain it, and keep it going. But the problem is, if they don't have this sex appeal element that has been in the games for pretty much every title in the franchise, that's going to divide the fan base heavily. And at that point, I'm not sure if there's gonna be enough fans to keep it going to sustain it, right? Like, I don't know, I think the casual side of Dead or Alive comes for like the booba and stuff like that, but then they also love just kind of mashing buttons and doing cool stuff. And I think that that's one of the coolest things about Dead or Alive. Like, you don't always have to play a game at its highest level of play, like especially for fighting games. I think it's fun to just pick up a big titty waifu fighter and just mash buttons and, you know, do cool combos and hit other opponents really hard. Like, I think that that's cool, and that's part of the casual side and appeal of these Dead or Alive games. So if they don't have that aspect there, it will be interesting to see what happens and what becomes of the fan base of Dead or Alive. But yeah, and if the fan base gets divided heavily, we'll just have to wait and see if there's actually enough people that will support the game, which is also another reason why I'm making this video. I want to know what you guys think about all that. Like, would you guys still support the game if they remove the sex appeal, or would you guys not really care for the franchise at all? Would it just become another 3D fighter to you, like Tekken or Virtua Fighter, you know? I'm really interested. Let me know in the comments below. But yeah, like I said, me personally, I think they should just have the option there to have it on or off. I think that that's been fine. I think that's worked out for 6. I do think as a longtime DOA fan, it would be nice if they added it or they, you know, put it in. And I also thought of an idea of maybe how they could put it in without people necessarily paying so much attention to it. I think the easiest way for them would definitely just be to have the sex appeal turned off by default, and then that way newcomers will pick up the game and they'll be like, oh, okay, this is a nice, you know, ninja fighting game or whatever. And then for the fans that know, you know, they'll go to that option screen and they will turn it on, right? Another way that they could do it, if they really don't want people to know that, you know, this game has booba and jiggle physics and all that, is if they added that as DLC. I'm not really sure how I would feel about that, but again, as long as it's like free, I think it would still be okay. Like, I think it would still work. But I think that if they really wanted to go for, let's not let casuals see this, or like, we want to appeal to the longtime fans and give them this, but at the same time, we don't want it to detract from the normies and the newcomers that we're trying to get in, then yeah, I think they could just honestly make the game, you know, no sex appeal or anything, and just add that as like a free patch of DLC for the fans that they can just download if they want it in. And then that way, like, all the newcomers that pick it up, they won't really know about it. And, you know, they just don't have to download it. They just don't have to have it in as an option at all if they don't want to. So that could be another option. Again, I'm not sure how I would feel about that, but I think it'd be fine. Again, that's another thing I would like to know how you guys would feel about that. If they added it as DLC, and whether or not they made it free or not. I think they would have to make it free, right? Like, obviously, but if they decided not to make it free, which wouldn't really surprise me, I'm curious, what would you guys think about that? But yeah, I think that's pretty much all I wanted to say for this one. So yeah, let me know what you guys think about everything I had to say in the comments below. Please leave a like on the video. I do play a lot of Dead or Alive ranked and with some friends on the channel. So yeah, if you guys want more Dead or Alive content and you want to see your boy run some games with Mila, definitely feel free to check out those videos, and, you know, just check out more of my fighting game content on my channel. And yeah, it would greatly mean a lot to me if you guys subscribed. And yeah, that's pretty much all I got for this one. So hopefully I'll see you guys in the next video.